This is The Sweater with Kathleen Dames. Over our 12-episode season, I will share some of my best sweater knitting techniques with you while we knit a sweater together. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Season 4 of The Sweater with Kathleen Dames. I am so excited to be back. It's been a long time, I know, but I've been busy doing a lot of other things. I publish books as One More Row Press. I publish my own patterns. I raise a family. I live in New York City. So I've been busy, but that doesn't mean that I haven't been knitting and that I haven't been thinking about things that I would like to share with you about knitting. So this is episode 0 of season 4. It's a sort of intro before we get started. And the sweater we're going to knit this season is called Enwreathed, and I am wearing it today. Jane is wearing the companion cowl, and I'm going to talk more about why there are both of these things as we go along. Let me tell you, Enwreathed is a top-down, seamless, round yoke, colorwork yoke sweater with long sleeves and a moderate length body. But of course, because it's top down, you can make it as long as you want. You want to make a dress? Go for it. It'll just mean a lot of knitting, but there's nothing wrong with that. More knitting, more better, right? The cowl is the companion because I find when swatching, I know none of us like to swatch. I mean, some people do. They get into it and almost like it becomes their job. But swatching can be frustrating because you want to be knitting your thing, right? So doing the cowl is a great way to swatch and get a thing. And also I've found with colorwork that swatching a small circumference, and you really want to swatch in the round. I mean, you could swatch back and forth, but colorwork, especially in the round, is more pleasant to my experience. But a small circumference, like just making a 4-inch tube or something, or making mitts or mittens, I find my gauge, my tension gets tight at those smaller circumferences. And one of the things that helps is spreading your stitches along the needle so that stitches sort of spread out. And you can't do that on tiny needles or making a small circumference, whether you use DPNs or magic loop or what have you. So a cowl is a great way to relax, especially if you haven't done any colorwork before, and get into that rhythm and spread all the stitches out so they have room, and they have their floats, which are the bits of yarn across the back so that the floats stay stretched, because you can always tighten up your stitches, but you can't loosen up. Like, you can't magically make more yarn in a stitch that isn't there. So, if your floats are really loose and flopping rather than floating, you can do things about that. But if you have been really, or if you're a tight knitter and you're on that small circumference, it's really, there's nothing you can do. It just gets bunchy, and even blocking isn't going to fix that too much. So that is why I ended up writing a cowl pattern. It also gives you a chance to, put those colors together that you're thinking about. I've had some testers who have done different colors. They did each band in a different color, each color band with the same background. So they could decide that they liked all of them, and then they could do a band in each colorwork band in a different color, or they decided that is the color I want. That color is the one that I'm going to do my sweater in. But then you still have a cowl that goes with your sweater, because sometimes you need more. I don't like to necessarily do turtlenecks. I don't like something really tight around my neck. That's a personal thing. But sometimes my neck is cold, and so a cowl is a great solution for that. So as we go along, I'm going to give you all the tips and tricks that I have figured out while designing and knitting this sweater. And I should jump back a second and say that I designed and knit this sweater in November of 2018. And it was sort of my version of NaNiSueMo, which is the National Knit a Sweater Month. It's sort of a companion to NaNiWriMo, which is National Write a Novel Month, that happens in November, where people write or start to write, give themselves a challenge of trying to write a novel in a month. And that's like 40,000 words over the course of the month or something like that. And somebody realized that there are a similar number of stitches, at least in like a worsted weight sweater. And so that would be a great, another version of that kind of month-long challenge. And so I started out on November 1st with swatching and thinking and pulling yarn, and I documented it here on YouTube. So you can go over to my channel. You presumably are watching this on my channel, and it says a little section about the Enwreathed Pullover, and so you can watch. It's like 8 minutes a day. I just wanted to do something different, so it was just on my phone, so they're all vertical, sorry, not traditional horizontal film, whatever, but it's really me day by day with the decisions that I make, the techniques that I figure out, the stuff that I use. So you might enjoy watching that too. And I am going to tell you what we are going to do. So as you know, if you've been with me before on the sweater, we are going to do a 12-week series, season. And so this is episode 0. This doesn't count, so it's actually 13 weeks. I hope you don't mind. And this gives you a chance to go at your own pace. As you can see from the November challenge, I finished my sweater in about 2 weeks, but I'm a fast knitter and it's my job. It's part of my job, I should say. The rest of my job is a lot of other things that aren't knitting, but I have more time built into my work day for knitting. Not all of you do. There's no pressure. There's no rush. These videos will be here forever, so don't fret about that. Okay, so just go at your own pace. You can watch each episode when you're ready to watch it, or you can watch them all at once. You can save them up, whatever makes you happy. So the season this time, we've got episode 0, introduction. We're here right now. We're talking about what we're going to be doing. Episode 1, we're going to talk about size choice and all the things that go into that. And I will get out my measuring tape and we will talk about honesty and we'll have a little therapy session. So that'll be great. Episode 2 is going to be about yarn choice. And the yarn I used is Biches et Bouches. So that is a lovely yarn. I'll talk more about it. I'm going to talk about other yarn choices because I am going to be designing and knitting a second sweater while you all are doing this so that I can show you the techniques. And I couldn't wait. So I already started on my swatch. It's a heart pattern. It's some crazy bright Manos del Uruguay pink, and then a natural Swan's Island merino with a little bit of alpaca in this sort of yummy oatmeal color. And I just love the way the swatch is turning out, and I can't wait to do a yoke sweater. So then episode 3 will be swatching, which is what I'm doing here. And I also will talk about why I did a flat swatch. Oops, sorry about that. So swatching, the cowl is another form of swatching, and needle choices and that kind of stuff, and a little bit about how I handle needle specifications and patterns, which I think is a good thing to talk about. Episode 4, we're going to talk about charts, about reading charts, about understanding charts, and all sorts of stuff about learning the way people process information. Episode 5, traditionally, and once again, will be a live show where you can ask me questions in advance or on the YouTube live video thing, which is how I think I'll do it again. And I'll set a time and whatever. And you can ask questions and I will try and answer them. And we'll just jibber jabber about whatever's coming up as you're getting along with your sweater. Episode 6 will be about colorwork techniques, including things like trapping, how you can do color work with 2 colors, two-handed, however works for you, but we can talk about different things on that. Episode 7, we're going to talk about increases because we're going to be working top down, different kinds of increases, things like provisional cast on, some techniques. So fun techniques that help out when doing this sweater and giving you a lot of options. And then number 8, we're going to talk about splitting for sleeves and body. That's often a thing that people get stuck on, whether working bottom up, which is the way I usually work, or top down. But talking about that point where the sleeves and the body come together and how to make that work while you're knitting. Episode 9, we're going to talk about bottom up versus top down. And how you can, if you get a pattern that is bottom up and you really work best top down, there are ways you can turn it around. So we'll talk more about that. Episode 10 will be finishing techniques, and that'll sort of go along with bottom up, top down, because there are different finishing techniques you are going to put to use depending on the direction of your knitting. The final product looks very similar whether you're bottom up or top down, but there are different things that you need to think about. And then, of course, episode 11 will be the blocking episode, which is always a lot of fun. I will stomp on a sweater. But we'll talk more about blocking, and I'll talk about blocking probably all along. I want to talk about blocking while we're talking about swatching too, because that's important. And then, of course, episode 12 is the finished object. So that is going to take us into May, I think. Yes. I plotted it out on my calendar here. So that will take us from March 1st to May 24th. There'll be an episode every Friday. And it will be a lot of fun. So to get started, you're going to need the pattern, and it's called Enwreathed, Enwreathed. It is on Ravelry, of course, and there's the Enwreathed Pullover and the Enwreathed Cowl. If you buy the pullover, you will also get the cowl pattern. If you're not up for pullovers, or you just like colorwork cowls, or you like making small accessories, you can, of course, buy the cowl as a separate pattern. So I don't want to lock anybody into having to buy a sweater pattern when they know they're never going to knit a sweater. I think if you're watching this, you are going to knit a sweater, so go ahead and buy the sweater and get the cowl. I'm probably going to have a deal or something to start things off. Not probably. I'm going to have a deal to start things off where you can get both patterns for a special lower price than usual. And then, like I said, you will be able to get the cowl and the pullover pattern together for, basically you get the cowl for free. So go to my Ravelry shop, and I'm Pearly on Ravelry, but you can also find me as Kathleen Dames. And that should get us started. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, if you're watching this, be sure to hit subscribe and you will never miss an episode. And if you are listening to this on iTunes, I hope I'm doing a good job explaining things to you with words. But because I know that not everybody has the time to watch things all the time. So you can find me on iTunes. If you do, please rate and review. Same goes for YouTube, and be sure to subscribe on either platform or wherever you get your podcasts. What else? You can find me as @Kathleen Dames on Twitter, Instagram, all the places. KathleenDames.com is where you can find information on me and all of my work. KathleenDames.com/thesweater will take you right to where you need to be to get information on this season and previous seasons. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my newsletter. I've combined my 2 newsletters, one for the sweater and one for just my work, into one because I cannot manage 2 newsletters right now. So you just sign up and I'll send you occasional emails. I try not to be a pest, but I try to provide you all the good information you need. And we will get started very soon. So I'm really excited. As you can see, I'm so excited about the new design I'm going to knit that I have gotten about 2/3 of the way through my cowl for that one on this beautiful pink and oatmeal combo. And it's a bunch of hearts and other little what are called Piri patterns. And I'll talk more about those different terms for colorwork patterns as we go along. But I'm having a lot of fun with that and looking forward to getting started on the sweater so that we can all get started. So thank you so much for being here. I look forward to this season of the sweater, and I hope you do too. So I will be back next week, and happy knitting. Bye! This is season 4 of The Sweater with Kathleen Dames. and we are knitting the Enwreathed Pullover together. Many thanks to Biche Bouche, Swans Island, and Manos del Uruguay for making such delicious yarns, and Brooklyn General, Knitty City, and Swans Island Company for selling those yarns to me. Many thanks to my technical editor, my test knitter, and to you for being part of the Sweater with Kathleen Dames. To purchase the Enwreathed Pullover and or cowl pattern, visit kathleensdames.com/thesweater or find it on Ravelry. Remember that you get a copy of the cowl pattern if you purchase the pullover. While you're there, be sure to sign up for my newsletter so you won't miss an episode. Plus, you can always hit reply on a newsletter and ask me any questions that come up about sweater knitting. Posting your progress on social media? Be sure to use the hashtags Enwreathed Pullover and Enwreathed Cowl and tag me at Kathleen Dames. If you have a chance, be sure to rate and review on iTunes, even if you watch the YouTube version of this podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and happy knitting!